Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we're discussing some pretty baffling news coming out of the NHL today in regards to the San Jose Sharks, and for the first time in a while, this has nothing to do with Evander Kane. Instead, it is that forward Kevin Labanc has been suspended one game for slew footing St. Louis Blues forward Tyler Bozak in last night's Sharks-Blues games, which for anyone who actually watched that game is just absolutely crazy to think about. Now, before I even get into the play itself and discuss how this absolutely was not a slew foot, let's first discuss the Department of Player Safety in general thus far this season. Now, before I get into that, I should mention that there is, the popular narrative among Sharks fans that the Department of Player Safety seems to hold something against the San Jose Sharks organization, and the proof, I guess there definitely is proof, in that the Department of Player Safety has not suspended a player who has committed, a dangerous play against a Sharks player for almost 5 years now. And there definitely was not a lack of dangerous plays that have occurred. There's already been a couple this season. There were many back in that 2019 playoff series against that very same St. Louis Blues team, and yet nothing has really come out of that. But I won't necessarily comment on that conspiracy or if whether or not that's actually true, because who could really tell at the end of the day. But let's actually just discuss what the Department of Player Safety has done this season, and it all really revolves around a single name, and that name is PK Subban. You see, Subban was once an extremely good defenseman at the NHL level. He is a Norris Trophy winner back in 2013. He signed a massive $9 million contract, but over the years, he's gotten older, he's gotten slower, and he's kind of fallen into this really bad habit of, slew footing players. You know that general saying that goes, you slew foot someone once, and it's a coincidence. You slew foot someone twice and it's a tragedy, but you slew foot someone 3 times and suddenly it's a pattern. Well, that's exactly what describes PK Subban's play thus far in this very short season. Back in the preseason against the New York Rangers, he slew-footed forward Ryan Reeves. Then at the end of October, he slew-footed Calgary Flames forward Milan Lucic and was fined $15,000 for that. And then just a week later, he slew-footed forward Trevor Zegras of the Anaheim Ducks and was fined yet another $15,000 for that. So for a combined 3 slew-footing plays, and if you watch the replays of each one, you cannot really argue that these were not slew-foot plays, he has been fined a grand total of $30,000. Now you look at Kevin Labanc, he has only committed a single act of slew-footing throughout his entire career, and he has now been suspended more games than PK Subban has thus far this season for the exact same act that he's done 3 times less often, which is just absolutely insane. When you take into account Kevin Labanc's contract, being suspended a single game is him forfeiting over $57,000, which is almost double of what PK Subban has had to forfeit for his 3 slew foots thus far this season. Now, if you're watching this, you may be listening and saying, yeah, but it doesn't really matter what PK Subban has done and what the Department of Player Safety has given him as a punishment. It really only matters in an independent sense what Kevin Labanc did last night against Tyler Bozak. Well, let's discuss that. Because if you were watching in real time and you saw that play, it's no wonder why you thought that would be a slew foot. The radar probably blinked for the Department of Player Safety. But once you actually watch the replay, and even just a single time with the right angle, you can see that this is just a battle to try and get to a puck that is along the boards and it's completely wide open, that Kevin Labanc, as he usually does because he's not really the strongest player, gets out-muscled and ends up losing balance. He falls over, and what do you do when you fall over as a player on the ice? Well, you kind of kick out your legs. This is just a general human reaction, and so it's no surprise that when Kevin Labanc is falling over, the player who is literally right next to him, basically attached to him, is also going to end up falling over. So the fact that this somehow ends up getting called a slew foot when Kevin Labanc wouldn't hurt a fly is just absolutely insane to me, especially when you consider all the other context of what has happened thus far this season. And yet Kevin Labanc, he gets the one game, and I guess this is sending a message that, we've accepted multiple slew foots already this season, but this is where we're drawing the line, says the Department of Player Safety. Now, is this really the end of the world for the San Jose Sharks? Well, not really. Kevin Labanc was already playing on the 4th line for the Sharks, getting maybe a dozen minutes per night. So besides the power play maybe taking a slight downturn, even though the Sharks haven't been getting any power plays anyway in the past few games, it seems, The fact is that Kevin Labanc's game was already not particularly impressive in last night's game against the Blues. It was even possible he could be a healthy scratch coming up in tomorrow's game. And so this isn't going to make the Sharks, they're not losing out on a ton of pressure over this next game, but it's just the principle of the situation. The fact that he gets suspended one game when you consider everything else that has happened this season, it's just kind of an ugly look from the NHL. Class dismissed.